In the ever-evolving landscape of fast food, not every chain manages to stay afloat. Today, we're diving deep into 15 fast food chains that are teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, revealing the fascinating stories behind their decline and the challenges they face in today's competitive market. Let's start with Quiznos. Once a formidable competitor to Subway with over 4,700 locations in 2007. Today, they're down to fewer than 200 stores. The chain's dramatic fall began with an aggressive expansion strategy that ultimately backfired. Franchisees found themselves struggling with high food costs and corporate demands that ate into their profits. The 2008 financial crisis delivered another blow, and competition from newer sandwich chains like Jimmy John's and Jersey Mike's has made recovery increasingly difficult. Moving on to Sbarro, the mall pizza giant that's been struggling to adapt to changing consumer habits. Remember when shopping malls were the place to be? Sbarro built its empire on mall traffic, but as retail continues to shift online and food courts lose their appeal, they've been forced to close hundreds of locations. They've already gone through bankruptcy twice, in 2011 and 2014, and current market conditions suggest they might be heading for a third. Boston Market, once known as Boston Chicken, is another chain fighting for survival. From 1,200 locations in '98, they're down to roughly 300 today. Their attempt to expand beyond rotisserie chicken into other menu items confused their brand identity, and increasing competition from grocery stores offering similar prepared foods has eaten into their market share. Recent store closures and supplier payment issues suggest they're struggling to maintain operations. Remember Friendly's? This ice cream and burger chain that started in 1935 has seen better days. While they once had over 500 locations, they're now operating fewer than 130 restaurants. Their first bankruptcy in 2011 wasn't enough to turn things around, and a second filing in 2020 during the pandemic further complicated their recovery efforts. Despite their iconic ice cream, they've struggled to attract younger customers and compete with modern fast casual concepts. Fuddruckers, famous for their world's greatest hamburgers, has been on a steady decline. Their parent company, Luby's, announced plans to liquidate in 2020. And while a new owner has taken over, the chain continues to struggle. From over 500 locations in their heyday, they're down to about 92 restaurants. Their build-your-own burger concept, once innovative, now faces stiff competition from newer chains with similar offerings but more modern appeal. Johnny Rockets, the 1950s-themed diner chain, has been losing ground despite multiple attempts at reinvention. Their nostalgic atmosphere, once a key selling point, now feels outdated to many consumers. High operating costs and declining mall traffic have forced numerous location closures. Even their acquisition by Fat Brands in 2020 hasn't stopped the bleeding, with more stores continuing to shut down. Krystal, the South's answer to White Castle, has been struggling to maintain relevance. Founded in 1932, they filed for bankruptcy in 2020, and while they emerged from it, continue to face challenges. Their small, square burgers haven't been enough to compete with larger chains' value menus, and their concentration in the southeastern United States limits their growth potential. Del Taco, despite merging with Jack in the Box in 2022, faces an uncertain future. While they've maintained a presence in the Mexican fast food market, they've struggled to differentiate themselves from Taco Bell and other competitors. Store closures have become more frequent, and their attempt to appeal to both Mexican food and American burger consumers hasn't fully resonated with either group. Steak 'n Shake has been closing locations at an alarming rate. Their attempt to offer premium burgers at fast food prices has squeezed margins, and their service model changes have confused customers. From over 600 locations, they've lost nearly half their restaurants. And their parent company has been selling off corporate-owned locations to franchisees in a bid to stay afloat. Roy Rogers Restaurants, named after the famous cowboy, has fallen far from its peak of 648 locations. Now with fewer than 50 stores, they're struggling to maintain relevance in a market that's moved away from their Western-themed concept. Their attempt to combine roast beef, burgers, and fried chicken under one roof, while unique, hasn't been enough to drive growth. Blimpie, once a major player in the submarine sandwich market, has been steadily losing ground to competitors. From over 2,000 locations in 2002, they're down to fewer than 300 stores. Their attempt to compete with Subway's aggressive pricing and marketing has led to reduced profitability for franchisees, and their brand recognition continues to decline. Hamburger Stand, a smaller chain owned by Wiener Schnitzel's parent company, has been quietly disappearing from the landscape. Their limited menu and focus on basic hamburgers hasn't resonated with consumers looking for more variety and premium options. Store closures have become increasingly common, and their future remains uncertain. Godfathers Pizza, despite its loyal following, has been struggling to maintain market share. Their attempt to compete with delivery-focused chains like Domino's and Pizza Hut has been challenging, and their expansion into convenience stores hasn't delivered the results they hoped for. From over 700 locations in the early 1990s, they're now down to around 400 stores. Checkers and Rally's, while technically the same company operating under two brands, have been facing significant challenges. Their drive-through focused model, once a competitive advantage, has become standard in the industry. Financial struggles have led to store closures, and their attempt to compete on price alone has hurt profitability. Finally, there's Schlotzsky's, a chain that's been through bankruptcy before and might be heading there again. Their attempt to evolve from a sandwich shop to a full-service restaurant hasn't fully connected with consumers, and their complex menu and operations have made it difficult for franchisees to maintain profitability. The common thread among these struggling chains is their difficulty adapting to changing consumer preferences and market conditions. High operational costs, increased competition, and changing dining habits have created a perfect storm that threatens their survival. While some might find ways to reinvent themselves and emerge stronger, others will likely join the long list of defunct fast food chains that couldn't keep up with the times. What's particularly interesting is how many of these chains were once category leaders or innovators in their space. Their struggles serve as a reminder that in the fast food industry, past success doesn't guarantee future survival. As consumer preferences continue to evolve and new competitors emerge, these chains will need to find ways to reinvent themselves or risk disappearing entirely from the American dining landscape.